Good morning. I hope that everyone's having a great day, and I hope and appreciate everyone's time for sitting on this webinar. My name is Hideki Toshima, and I'm an environmental geologist at the Illinois State Water Survey, where we manage our program wateropera.org. During this presentation, I'll be introducing to you about wateropera.org, what exactly this website is, and how this website is a useful tool for professionals working in the water and wastewater industry, as well as the decentralized wastewater industry, while highlighting publicly available resources on source water protection with a focus on on-site wastewater or decentralized wastewater topics. Before I start, I wanted to quickly go over some housekeeping stuff. This webinar will be presented on the GoToWebinar platform. For those that have not used the GoToWebinar before, you should see a console similar to what I've shown on this slide. On the right side, there's a questions section where you'll be able to submit any question you might have throughout the webinar, which we can review at the end. So please don't hesitate to ask any questions throughout the webinar. The webinar will also be recorded and will be uploaded to our wateropera.org YouTube channel once the webinar is over. We have not applied for any operator credits, but we'll be more than happy to offer you a certificate of attendance or help you complete any kind of forms required by your certification agency or body. If you are interested, please check out the handout section on the GoToWebinar platform to see any instructions for requesting certification, as well as the form with a link to complete it. Additionally, we will not be able to provide any certificates for watching the recording of this webinar. If you'd like the copy of the presentation slides, please feel free to email us at the end. I'll have my email address shown at the very end, and I'll be more than happy to send it to you. Since a lot of the resources today that I'm going to be highlighting have links or URLs attached to them, I'm just doing that as much easier to be able to access the resources easily. So this will be the outline of this presentation today. I'll start off by again introducing what wateropera.org is, while giving an overview of what kind of website it is, what are the services and tools that it offers, and how operators can utilize this website to further their knowledge on water and wastewater management. I'll then highlight some of the public available resources that's been developed by various organizations and how you can find these resources, as well as similar resources on the website. I've done similar presentations in the past, but we always focus on a specific topic and highlighted resources related to that topic. For this presentation, I'll be focusing more on highlighting resources related to source water or source water protection, with the focus on on-site wastewater systems. Then finally, I'll briefly discuss some of the other features that you can find on our site. So what exactly is wateropera.org? It's a website that which we developed at the University of Illinois in collaboration with the Rural Community Assisted Partnership, RCAP, with funding from the US EPA. It serves as a clearinghouse of publicly available resources to help water and wastewater system operators with a focus on small systems. We have a great team of staff that scour the internet to find any kind of public available information or resource that's useful for operators. We catalog it, and we provide a means to search and access the information through our website easier. So rather than having to sift through multiple pages of search results on Google, we made the search platform to be able to find water and wastewater relevant resources to save you time. Also, you might not find a useful, or if you find a useful resource through Google, you might find out that it's actually locked behind a paywall or requires some sort of membership on that website. You might see a lot of these with like AWWA resources, WEF resources. These are much bigger organizations, but there are a lot more organizations out there that develop great public available resources like state agencies, national organizations like US EPA. That's the kind of resources that we're targeting. So everything you can find on our website is public available information, as there's no fee or registration required to use our website. You just get on there and start using it. Additionally, if operators have trouble finding certain information, they can always call us or email us, and we'll try to help them find that information or try to connect you to a person that can actually help you answer any kind of question you might have. So how do we find these resources and what exactly do we look for? So we have a database of over 800 organizations, such as national organizations like EPA, AWWA, WEF, as well as individual state agencies like regional associations and even vendors. Each of our staff visits their website and looks for any kind of information on events like operator trainings, webinars, conferences, pretty much any event which offers CEUs to operators. we like to catalog those. Even if they don't offer credits, if an event is free and useful for operators, like many EPA webinars, we'll collect the information and provide a means to display it on our website. We also look for any public available resources such as fact sheets, reports, manuals, past conference presentations, any kind of technical resource that will be helpful for operators, especially small system operators. We try to focus on those. We've been searching and collecting these resources since 2009, and we currently have collected over, I think, 15,000 documents, and we catalog over 11,000 events every year. So it's a huge task, but that's what our team is there to do. So this website was actually first called smallwatersupply.org, but we rebranded to wateropera.org around 2016. The website was originally developed for operators of rural communities where they may not have had the time to search for technical resources, since in many rural communities, the operator running their facility might not even be their full-time operator and can have a different full-time job. Additionally, back then, there were a lot more lack of infrastructure providing high-speed internet to many rural areas. So if you wanted to download like a 10 megabyte PDF, it might actually take a decent amount of time to actually be able to download it. So we wanted to reduce the need for operators to have to go through that process by being able to find resources, see a description of it, and then decide whether they want to actually download it or not. So after we collect these resources or data, we try to display that information on our calendar and library tool on our website. So our nationwide calendar tool is meant to help operators save time from having to, again, search through multiple organizations' websites or training providers' websites and find all the relevant events on a single calendar. So for states that might have over 20 training providers, it might be a hassle to have to go through all their training providers' websites. We try to list all those events on a single calendar. Similarly, we collect any kind of useful public available resources, like again, fact sheets, technical resources, and display them on our document library. Both the calendar and library utilize an extend search functionality so that you can easily find the information that you're looking for, and I'll make sure to show screenshots of these examples later in the presentation. For each entry, we also try to make sure to provide a complete summary with the most important details. So for example, on the document side, we'll make sure to provide a short summary of the resource, as well as links to where we got it, or the organization that we got it from. And we always make sure to link back to the host organization, so we're not taking any credit. We always want to make sure we send you to the host organization. And on the event side, we make sure to give you a summary of the events, as well as a complete summary of the events, as well as a with information like costs, CEUs offered, contact information to the training provider, and much more. We always make sure to include a link to the host organization, and we try not to host any resources ourselves, unless there are resources from organizations that no longer is active, but is still useful today. We always want to make sure you're going back to the host, so again, they have all the credit. In the past, we've heard from many operators that they found the nationwide calendar to be an excellent tool to find events that they never knew existed. And we've gotten calls and emails from operators saying, hey, I need to get X hours of credits by the end of the month. Can you help me find some of the online courses that I can take from my office? And we've guided them through the process of how to search for events through our calendar. We've even had various vendors reach out to us asking to have their events featured on our website. Many times they don't seek pre-approval. So we always tell them, if you want to have your events featured on our calendar, you have to go through the process to get it pre-approved, and then we'll be more than happy to list it. And we've actually had some vendors go through the process and gotten their events or training events pre-approved, and we've been able to add it on their calendar, which is a great initiative on their part. The state of Washington even requires training providers to reach out to us about new approved training so that we can include it on our calendar, and they even send their operators to our website. There's various other state privacy agencies that highlight our website as a resource as well, and we greatly appreciate that shout out from those agencies. So this is how our front page of wateropera.org looks like. I'll go more into details on how to navigate our site later, but just want to give you a preview of how it looks like. But if you wanted to access the web page now, you can just enter the link wateropera.org on your browser, and you can start navigating our website using the tools and search for stuff along as I highlight them throughout this presentation. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we deal with a wide range of topics, and every resource we add is tagged with specific categories, which gets integrated into our search engine. Here's a list of categories or filters that we use to categorize events, just to give you an idea of what kind of topics you can find on our website. I'm also a big fan of actually making and presenting graphs, so I really wanted to include something visual on this slide. And the chart really shows the breakdown of the categories or topics covered from around 13,000 events we entered during 2023. And it really highlights how most of the events, again, focuses on operation and maintenance, water wastewater treatment, certification prep. But one of the categories listed here is source water and source water protection, which includes topics relevant for, again, public water system and wastewater systems, municipalities, to protect their drinking water sources. So the list of category and percentage shown here only accounts for the event side that we added, but the resources also share similar categories. So you will see source water protection on there as well. And you might also notice that one of the categories listed here is decentralized wastewater treatment. Since this presentation is kind of is going to include that topic as well, I just wanted to include that as, or let you know that that is a category as well. The reason I focused on source water protection for this webinar is because there's been a lot more increased efforts into better management of on-site systems, especially around the coastal areas, and source water protection. And because source water protection involves a lot of groups like public water system, municipal water system, on-site professionals, we figured that's a great topic to cover through our website. So here's an overview of the types of resources I'll be covering today. Again, these will primarily be public, or these will all be publicly available resources, and the majority will focus on source water protection. Since the resources will range from short fact sheets that provide a basic overview of what source water protection is, to more technical guides which utilities and decision makers like local health districts can utilize to develop a more comprehensive source water protection plan. Additional resources will focus specifically on on-site wastewater system or decentralized wastewater systems, and it will help states develop a better wastewater management program to reduce the impacts of on-site wastewater discharge or on-site wastewater leaks or discharges onto source waters, and to help professionals and homeowners to better maintain their on-site wastewater system like septic tanks. Many of these resources come from, again, federal agencies such as US EPA. Additional resources come from regional organizations like New England Interstate Water Pollution Control Commission, or NUIPIC, various state agencies, as well as the source water collaboratives. Now, before I get into highlighting some of the resources, I wanted to provide a brief overview of what source water protection is, how it's relevant to public water system, and how it's relevant for public water systems, on-site wastewater system professionals, and other decision makers involved with developing a source water protection plan. So, what is source water protection? Source water protection is the effort drinking water utilities and municipalities can implement to protect source water from contamination. Source water refers to sources of water such as rivers, lakes, reservoirs, even source water sources, groundwater sources like municipal water supply wells, and even private wells that might exist on homeowner properties. Since public water systems are required to meet EPA requirements, implementing source water protection plans can very much reduce the risk of contamination to water sources, leading to reduced treatment costs, and having to mitigate needing to implement complex treatment. So, for example, if you know an industrial facility upstream that is discharging contaminants of emerging concern, like maybe PFAS, by implementing source water protection, water utilities can reduce the impacts of those contaminants entering their source water. Additional sources of contaminations or contaminants commonly brought up during source water protection includes underground storage tanks, hazardous material discharges from facility, often brought up as on-site sewage disposal systems or on-site wastewater systems. So there are several elements or steps associated with source water protection. One of them includes designating source water protection areas or wellhead protection areas. These are geographical regions surrounding a drinking water source and is intended to prevent source water contamination by limiting what can happen on that land. Another step is to implement a community septic management program to develop a local septic inspection or management plan to ensure that septic systems are functioning properly. A lot of times homeowners are supposed to be in charge of managing their on-site systems, but some homeowners might not be able to maintain their well as some others. So implementing a management program like this can ensure that all septic systems within an area is managed properly. Emergency response planning or contingency planning is another crucial component to reduce the chance of pollutants entering source water during events like floods, even wildfires. Public education also enables the community to be better involved during source water protection planning and helps to educate the public about the importance of protecting source water supplies and identifying problem areas, and even maybe teaching them how to better operate and maintain their septic systems. Consumer confidence reports are another method of sharing this information, which helps utilities to be more transparent with their public and gain better public perception about the water they're drinking as well as the municipality. Recently, there's been a lot more news highlighting how climate change leading to groundwater and sea level rise is causing septic systems to not operate properly due to, septic tank effluent not having enough time to be treated through soil after it enters the drain field. Increased soil moisture causes wastewater effluent to enter groundwater and eventually end up in water sources. This is especially critical around nutrient sensitive areas like the Chesapeake Bay area of the New England area and the Puget Sound region of Washington. There was also a very recent article from New York Times, which was actually a story map that was published last week, detailing how many of these on-site wastewater systems in the South are at risk due to rising water tables. And one of the images shown on there is a very powerful image of a septic tank that's been exposed on the coast, on the beach through erosion caused by sea level rise. And it's just amazing to see how there's multiple septic systems just exposed on the beach. PFAS and microplastics are another set of contaminants originating from industrial wastewater and hazardous material leaks, which is again being detected worldwide, and it's a growing concern among the public. By implementing source water protection measures and wastewater management program, states and communities can reduce the impacts these systems might have, or these contaminants might have on those systems, as well as on the environment. So why is source water protection important? For a public water system, source water protection is one of the 5 elements of a multi-barrier approach. Involves the selection of the best source water available, a protection of that source water, application of appropriate water treatment, and continued monitoring of those sources. So taking action to minimize the impacts on source water can lead to reduced risks from contaminants like pathogens and chemical pollutants entering your source water, reducing the risk to public health and potentially leading to, again, reduced treatment cost. Additionally, source water protection can lead to long-term sustainability of water sources, improve the public confidence in the water that they're drinking, and again, increase their trust with their municipality and their water utilities, and help to maintain water quality for the ecosystem and wildlife. Flood control measures, groundwater recharge, and enhanced in-stream flows are other options or options that can lead to increased water security for source water or for source water. I also wanted to touch on the regulations related to source water protection. Again, that's more relevant for municipalities and utilities. So the Safe Drinking Water Act was originally passed in Congress in 1974 to protect public water or public health by regulating the country's public drinking water supplies. In 1996, amendments were made to require each state to develop and implement a source water assessment program, or a SWAP, to better protect sources of their drinking water. This involves identifying areas where, again, drinking water sources are used, completing an inventory of potential sources of contamination within the area, determine the susceptibility of each water system to certain contaminations, and to distribute that information or assessment results to the community. The Clean Water Act is another federal statute which established the basic structure for regulating discharge of pollutants into water bodies and regulating water quality standards for surface waters. This act made it unlawful to discharge any pollutant from a point source into navigable water unless a permit was issued, or NPDES permits. These discharges include point source pollution discharges such as industrial, municipal, and other facilities, and individual homes that are connected to a municipal system or uses a on-site wastewater system. The act also addresses non-point source pollution, which is pollution that doesn't originate from a specific source, such as urban runoff, fertilizer runoff from agricultural lands, and just naturally occurring nutrients within the ground. So what are some of the source water protection strategies which municipalities can adopt? Geographic information systems, or GIS mapping tools, are becoming much more widely adopted by states and public water systems to better understand their watershed and help to prioritize conservation or protection areas. Combined with water quality monitoring data and field results or field surveys, municipalities can make better or more informed decisions while being transparent to the public about delineated source water protection zones and contaminated sources. Voluntary or mandatory land use management practice within wellhead or source water protection zones can reduce the impacts on water quality by controlling sediment erosion, as well as other urban runoff contaminants. Utilities will also be able to acquire land conservation easements near drinking water sources, increasing public protection to that source. Wastewater, stormwater, and septic management actions can also reduce harmful pollutants such as bacteria, sediments, and chemicals from entering your waterways. Proper septic inspection and repair programs or utilizing green infrastructure can also improve drinking water sources. Enhanced emergency preparedness can lead to or can reduce the chances of water sources contamination and even water shortages during emergency situations like droughts, ensuring reliable water supply to the community. So for example, establishing clear emergency response procedure for septic system owners can reduce wastewater runoff during floods and help better protect or better inform the homeowner of how they should manage their septic systems. Incentive programs and collaborative partnerships can be very effective methods for encouraging source water protection actions. These can include reimbursement programs for septic system maintenance. Education and outreach targeted to stakeholders is also critical to securing buy-in and participation. Meaningful protection actions are often the result of individual decisions made by landowners or homeowners to publicly or to positively impact their water supply. Creating a public communication plan can be very beneficial. Local ordinances and bylaws can guide development away from water sources and, again, limit industrial activities around sensitive source water areas. So why are decentralized wastewater systems such a critical component to a community's wastewater management and source water protection? It's estimated that roughly 1 in 5 households in the US use decentralized wastewater systems. These systems include a variety of approaches for collecting, treating, and dispersing wastewater from individual homes, clusters of homes, or even communities or businesses. These systems are often, again, called septic systems and offer simple passive treatment, which relies on soils to remove pollutants that are still existed in the wastewater effluent that comes out of your septic tank. Properly sited, installed, and maintained septic systems should not cause any water quality issues, but systems that are sited in densities that exceed the treatment capacity of regional soils and where systems are poorly designed, installed, or operated or maintained can lead to problems. This can often lead to excessive nitrogen discharges and phosphorus pollution to inland surface waters, which increases the chance of algal growth and which can lead to harmful algal blooms or HABs. The diagram shows how nutrients and pathogens can enter groundwater and impact those water bodies. I know usually there should be the setback distance should be much bigger from their drain field to a source of water, but since there have been a lot more coastal septic systems getting unearthed from sea level rise, this is starting to become much more of a reality. So now that we know how decentralized wastewater systems can affect source water, let's dive into some of the resources available, again, to help educate communities, municipalities, and water systems to better protect their source water. So the first resource that I want to highlight today is EPA's Assess, Plan, and Protect Source Water webpage, which is part of the agency's main source water protection homepage, and provides basic information to help utilities and source water protection partners to develop and implement a source water protection program. If you Google, how do I start a source water protection program, this is probably the first result that comes up. But again, I wanted to include it because it has the basic components that EPA believes is relevant to or required to develop a good source water protection plan, and it does include detailed information on each of those components. So their component, they focus on 7 fundamental steps. These steps are similar to much of the source water protection strategies I listed earlier, so I won't go too much into the details, but there's 2 phases to the process. The assessment phase, which identifies source water protection areas, potential sources of contaminants, engaging the public about findings in those assessments, and the protection phase, which follows after which focuses more on developing an action plan, outlining long-term management strategies, and implementing those protective actions, and to periodically evaluate and update their action plans. Another resource I have listed here is the drinking water mapping application to protect source water, which is an online mapping tool that EPA developed to help with source water assessment and planning. The tool can be used to locate potential sources of contamination to a drinking water source and to gather data to support source water assessments and to inform development of source water protection and emergency response plans. The map references data from environmental databases like the Safe Drinking Water Information System, (SIDWIS), registered NPDES permits, toxic release inventories, the Enforcement and Compliance Online tool, or the ECHO, and much more. The mapping tool itself, within the mapping tool, users can select a location or enter an address, and it'll tell them the potential sources of contamination from nearby facilities. It identifies which watershed supplies the drinking water that is supplied to you, and nearby watershed restoration project and source water partnerships. So in this screenshot, I just chose Springfield, Illinois, which is really close to where we're located in Champaign. And we know that one of the majority of their water supplied by their surface water supply. So I wanted to see exactly, what kind of facilities might show up. But again, you can pinpoint an area, and once you do that, another pop-up will show up that will ask you to search for potential facilities discharging to that specific source water, and it'll give you a whole list, and you can click on it, and it'll give you more information about that specific facility. It's a very fun tool to just play around with if you're trying to look for source water protection areas. EPA also has more comprehensive guidance manuals, which provides more in-depth information about the source water protection strategies for water systems and municipalities. The resource shown on this slide is the Pocket Guide to Protecting Your Drinking Water. It's a 52-page manual outlining the step-by-step process for conducting a source water assessment and developing a comprehensive source water protection program. It includes helpful information on finding funding sources, a list of best management practices for source water protection, and an overview of the related environmental regulation programs that water systems should be aware of. Each potential threat to source water is also provided with detailed impacts on public health and environment, as well as possible best management practices that are available. So in this screenshot on the bottom one, I have the best management practices for managing septic systems. Again, it shows the impacts of improper siting and maintenance, and the best management practices available, which is establishing proper siting area, specifying appropriate design and construction criteria, and much more. It might seem like a very large guide since it's 52 pages, but the content included is actually pretty brief and should be accessible even for those that might not be educated in public water system management to get started in implementing source water protection. The next resource is another guidance manual from EPA and is titled How to Update and Enhance Your Local Source Water Protection Assessments. This is a 36-page manual which describes opportunities for improving previously completed source water protection assessments. So when states were required to conduct an assessment for their source water supply back in 1990, or back when the 1996 amendments were made for every public water system, many states had limited time frame. Much of the baseline assessments were completed using readily available information. So much of these assessments could be improved with additional data that's been collected over the years. And changes in land use and other activities might have affected the state's initial assessment as well. These assessments may also be short of information like local data, which again can be critical to update initial assessments. Enhanced or updated assessments can ground truth initial assessment results, help define priorities for protective activities, and result in improved or maintained raw water quality, while providing greater accuracy and facilitate implementation of protection measures around your source water protection area. The guide recommends improving the delineation of groundwater and surface water sources, as the original area may not have been large enough for potential contaminant sources. The guide also recommends updating contaminant source inventories to include emerging and other unregulated contaminants. Sanitary surveys can also be adapted to support source water assessments. The manual does include an example from states that utilize this approach, to enhance or update their source water protection program. So you can actually see examples of how states have gone through the process of updating their assessments. One of the example highlights how New York State collected additional information about their public water systems during their sanitary surveys, which was eventually incorporated into their source water assessment to determine to update their overall susceptibility to their source water supplies. In many rural areas, source water protection and environmental justice can go hand in hand, as many underserved communities may have been neglected in the past, and those inequities may have affected source water protection planning efforts as well. When environmental justice is brought up, tribes are usually involved as well, since they have been historically neglected. EPA data even shows that tribal drinking water system average approximately 60% more water quality violations compared to non-tribal water systems. So to support those tribal systems, I just wanted to include one resource for those communities. This 34-page guide from RCAC, or the Rural Community Assistance Corporation, provides source water and wellhead protection guidance that is designed to be culturally appropriate for tribes. Since tribal governments make land use decisions and oversee activities that happen on their lands, such as watershed management, non-point source pollution, even setting up on-site wastewater systems, it's necessary to include them during the source water protection planning process. Similar to the previous resources highlighted, this guide will also provide a step-by-step guidance for getting started with source water protection, and it includes fill-in-the-blank spaces as well as tables, which will allow users to fill in their own system information as they go through the manual, acting as a living document. Examples of assessments conducted on tribal properties are also included, showing delineated areas from areas that are where there may be more higher concentrations of septic systems. Various state agencies have also developed various resources or on source water protection through their source water assessment program efforts. Kentucky Department of Environmental Protection has a series of source water protection story maps to help the public water system as well as municipalities better understand their roles during source water protection and how they can improve their source water protection plan. There are 7 story maps in total. What is the source water protection in Kentucky story map, which is geared more towards public water systems and municipalities, and it details again, similar to the previous resources, the 6 steps to source water protection. The story map also includes an interactive map with past source water protections source water protection project that's been completed in the state of Kentucky. The second is the source water protection basics story map, which is geared more towards the public to better understand, best management practices for source water protection and how the public can be involved, such as maintaining their septic systems or to better maintain their on-site wastewater systems. The story map references the agency's source water protection viewer mapping tool, which is an interactive mapping tool which provides public the means to search for water system and prioritize source water protection areas. Additional story maps include information about source water protection strategies, funding opportunities for source water and wellhead protection, web tools or online tools such as additional mapping layers from other federal agencies as well as within organizations within the state of Kentucky, which can assist water professionals. And they also have a story map on success stories, which utilizes another interactive map that shows locations throughout the state where source water protection projects has been completed. It's a very cool mapping tool because it shows actual delineated areas of concern, areas that they decided were more priority protection areas compared to others. So it's a cool tool to actually see some of the projects that's been going on in the state. NUIPIC, or the, again, New England Interstate Water Pollution Control Commission, also works with federal, state, and local officials across the Northeast region of the country, and they help with a lot of the source water protection efforts going on up there. The organization's mission is to advance clean water in that region. They collaborate with various on-site wastewater organizations to stay current on decentralized wastewater industry trends, and they also coordinate with Massachusetts Title V program, or Mass DEP's Massachusetts Title V program, to certify soil evaluators and even system inspectors. They have several resources on source water protection. The first being their protecting drinking water sources in your community. Tools for Municipal Officials Guide, which is a 82-page guidance document designed to educate, train, and further inform municipal water professionals and community members about information and tools available to manage and protect drinking water supply at a local level. This manual focuses on the following 5 key areas of vulnerability identified in the Northeast state source water assessments. Inadequate local regulation ordinances, underground storage tanks, decentralized wastewater systems, hazardous material storage, and stormwater runoff. The guide includes a chapter for each focus area and provides strategies to eliminate those vulnerabilities, as well as additional resources such as useful tools and funding opportunities. Case studies from the New England region states applicable for each focus area is also included within the guide. Chapter 7 includes comprehensive information on how to start a decentralized wastewater system management program, while referencing Massachusetts Community Septic Management Program, which was developed to provide low-cost loans to communities for septic management plan development. The development of a plan can also help to identify environmentally sensitive areas that require additional protection from septic system contamination in each community. NUPIC also has individual short fact sheets for each vulnerability identified in the state water source water assessments, or the 5 that I mentioned earlier. There are two. Most of these are 2-page fact sheets aimed at municipal officials and provide strategies to address each of those identified vulnerabilities. I selected 2 of those fact sheets I believe will be the most relevant for this audience, and I included on the slide. The first resource is the Is Your Land Use Agenda in Sync with Source Water Protection fact sheet, which clarifies the responsibilities for land use regulations by local governments to protect their source water. The fact sheets include strategies associated with land use, which can be implemented. These include designating critical water resource protection areas, maintaining forested buffers to wetlands and surface waters, and educating the public about land use. The second resource listed is the Are Septic Systems Up to Speed fact sheet, which highlights the importance of a decentralized wastewater management program and strategies which can be implemented to improve the management of those systems. Strategies highlighted include utilizing GIS maps as useful wastewater management planning tools, implementing septic system maintenance ordinances and tracking program, and again, educating homeowners. These fact sheets are meant to be used for municipal officials. So, if you're looking to start a source water protection program, but your local officials don't want to go through the arduous process of going through a large guide like the one I showed previously, maybe showcasing these fact sheets might be a better way to even show to the communities as well of how the importance of source water protection and how they can get started with implementing one. The next few resources will focus more on how communities can better manage decentralized wastewater systems, which can lead to enhanced source water protection. The first resource is a 14-page fact sheet from EPA titled Decentralized Wastewater Treatment Systems, a Program Strategy, which provides a historical overview of EPA's vision, mission, and actions to improve the performance of decentralized wastewater treatment systems and to protect public health and water resources. The fact sheet includes the summary of EPA's 4 key strategic goals and actions, which includes strengthening internal and external partnerships, improved system performance through improved practitioner competency, management practices, and technology transfer, improved accountability, control and oversight through enhanced state and local program implementation and regulatory reform, and improved local decision-making through improved public awareness or public education. Each strategic goal is accompanied with strategic actions which can be taken to achieve EPA's goal. But again, it's meant to be more of a, to better understand the history of the regulations that led up to this point. EPA also has a 5-page fact sheet titled Source Water Protection Practices Bulletin, Managing Septic Systems to Prevent Contamination of Drinking Water, which provides a brief overview of the ways to prevent septic systems from contaminating drinking water sources. These can include adopting setback distances, ensuring adequate soil permeability and proper drain field size, so that to prevent source water contamination and allowing wastewater to be treated, or to wastewater to have enough time to be treated properly. Proper efficient maintenance of a septic system, such as annual inspections and water conservation measures, can also extend the lifespan of a septic tank, as well as a drain field. Local hazardous waste collection programs can also be implemented to avoid household chemicals such as drain cleaners, pharmaceuticals, and other chemicals from entering the septic system and interfering with the proper operation and maintenance of those systems, which can again lead to groundwater contamination. Septic systems are generally more common in rural and suburban areas where centralized sewer systems are not available. However, they can also be found in some urban areas, particularly in neighborhoods or communities developed before the expansion of a municipal sewer system or infrastructure. In these urban settings, maintaining septic systems can be more challenging because of higher population densities and limited space. But there are still being used where existing sewer lines basically are impractical or cost prohibitive. So EPA developed this 518-page guidance manual intended to provide guidance to states, local program managers, and the public regarding management measures which can be used to reduce non-point source pollution from urban activities. I know it's a big guidance manual, but for our sake, we're only focusing on section 6 of this manual, which provides a list of management practices which can be implemented to ensure that new and existing on-site wastewater treatment systems are functioning properly. Management practices include comprehensive planning, which can provide valuable information and support for on-site system placement and management, requiring educational requirements for on-site professionals, a construction management program, which includes field inspections and much more. Additional information on innovative and alternative systems, performance, and costs associated with installing them are also covered. This chapter also highlights the core elements of an operation maintenance program that promotes the protection of public health and water resources from risk linked to on-site wastewater systems. EP also has a 2-page fact sheet intended for decision makers and planners to plan for on-site systems in developing area. This fact sheet, which is titled Planning for Septic Systems, highlights that on-site systems should be viewed as a part of the planned wastewater infrastructure and how an on-site management plan can help to ensure regulatory compliance. The steps to developing an on-site wastewater management program is outlined. It's again a very short resource, but again it'll help municipal officials get a better understanding of how these steps can help to better protect your source water. Another tool EPA offers is the Handbook for Managing On-Site and Clustered Decentralized Wastewater Treatment Systems. It's a 66-page how-to guide designed to assist sanitarians, regulators, community planners, and utility managers in implementing EPA guidelines for managing on-site and clustered wastewater systems. And I haven't touched on this yet, but for those that are unaware, cluster systems collect and treat wastewater from a small community and are an efficient solutions for areas where centralized sewer systems aren't practical. So like many houses, they can be connected to a single cluster system or single septic system, which is a cluster system. It just treats multiple homes at once. So rather than each individual homeowner having a septic system, this is a better way to just manage a single cluster system. But going back, this handbook is intended to help improve the performance of those on-site and clustered treatment systems through better planning, design, siting, installation, operation maintenance, and other activities. The handbook helps to answer questions such as why is a decentralized wastewater management program needed? How do I get started? Assessing existing conditions, developing a management program best for a community, and how to implement that specific program. The appendix section of the manual includes a plethora of resources like individual fact sheets on the program management elements with examples, financial resources, technical resources like technical assistance and system design, risk assessments, inspection and monitoring resources, and much more. This is a great tool. It has a lot of great information. This would be the handbook I would be utilizing if I wanted to go ahead and start implementing a decentralized or clustered wastewater management program. I also wanted to highlight resources from various state agencies. One of them is the Washington Department of Health, and they published a 89-page guidance manual which discusses the many issues and challenges associated with local wastewater management programs located around the Puget Sound region. and they compared the approaches that they used. So Puget Sound is an environmentally sensitive area that is highly susceptible to pollution from improperly maintained septic systems. Since septic systems have become a significant part of that region's wastewater infrastructure, permitting requirements and operation requirements are much more stricter around that area. Currently, the agency is prioritizing developing an accurate inventory and records of their systems as a priority and as a priority need of the region's local septic system management program. The manual elaborates on the fundamentals of a septic system management program and discusses the number of barriers and roadblocks the agency has experienced when implementing these programs. Challenges include better public perception of the operation maintenance required for maintaining septic systems, lack of awareness from public education, lack of community support, and much more. The manual also looks into the 12 different Puget Sound counties and evaluates their individual septic system management programs and explain how those differences influence the design and even the outcome of local management programs, such as gaining public support. I also wanted to highlight Mass DEP's approved Title V Innovative and Alternative Technologies webpage, which includes a list of technologies currently approved for use within the state. So Mass DEP's Title V regulations is a very comprehensive in their oversight and management of their septic systems. Each innovative alternative septic system technology has to be approved by the agency before it can be used within the state. Each technology is accompanied with individual fact sheets, which provides information on design and installation standards, inspection requirements, maintenance protocols, repair and upgrade guidelines, permitting and approval, and environmental protection measures. If you're looking to get data on any of those, or if you're looking to get data on certain innovative or alternative systems, this may be a good starting point to see if Mass DP has gone through the process to test those systems, pilot it, make sure they're actually suitable for use to manage on-site wastewater or to manage household wastewater. The next two resources comes from the Sourcewater Collaborative. So a Sourcewater Collaborative is a partnership of various stakeholders, including government agencies, water utilities, environmental groups, and even communities. They work together to protect their drinking water source. These collaboratives focus on shared goals such as preventing contamination entering their source water, promoting sustainable land use practices, and raising overall public awareness about the importance of protecting source water quality. They are able to leverage the resources and expertise from various members and partners that are involved within the collaborative to implement better and effective source water protection strategies. The main organization, which was formed in 2006, provides resources, tools, and guidance to help local communities and water managers. But there are various regional, state, and local collaboratives as well, which might be able to help, which might exist closer to where you are. It might be able to help you with your source water efforts. But here I have two resources highlighted, developed by the Source Water Collaborative. The first resource is a 32-page guide on using Clean Water Act discharge permits to protect drinking water sources, which was just released in May of 2024 and is designed to help public water systems and stakeholders to better understand the content of a Clean Water Act NPDES permit. So the guide will help users identify which NPDES permits are the greatest concern to source waters through water quality assessments, selecting, again, the pollutants concern, and finding more information about the facilities discharging pollutants of concern through EPA's ECHO database or the enforcements or the ECHO database mentioned earlier, their EPA's toxic release inventory database and tools, and EPA's other analytical tools such as their PFAS tool. The guide also includes a template comment letter, which can be sent to EPA to provide comments about individual NPD permits, which can help to facilitate the change in monitoring pollution discharge limits and maybe requiring those dischargers to notify drinking water utilities if any kind of event occurs where a lot more contaminants were discharged. Source Water Collaborative also has an older 93-page guidance manual titled Opportunities to Protect Drinking Water Sources and Advance Watershed Goals through the Clean Water Act, which shows how state and federal Clean Water Act and Safe Drinking Water Act programs can coordinate activities to achieve enhanced source water quality and public health protection. There's 5 sections that pertains to how specific Clean Water Act provisions and tools can be used to protect drinking water sources. These are these 5 sections focus on water quality standards, monitoring and assessment, impaired water listings, total maximum daily loads or TMDLs, and NPDES permits, and non-point source and Clean Water Act programs. Each of these sections include how states can implement these management strategies and the collaborative efforts required to meet some of those goals. For example, if states require NPDES permittees to adequately notify downstream users of spills and wastewater discharges, safer and more reliable drinking water can be ensured. So what will be needed for this system to work? Notification requirements, as well as other additional information, are included or are outlined throughout the manual. Now that we've covered various resources providing an overview of on-site wastewater management practices to protect source water, I also wanted to highlight tools that are available to assist municipalities and utilities with source water protection goals. So the first is the Wastewater Information Systems Tool, or TWIST, from EPA, which is a downloadable user-friendly management tool that will allow state and local health departments to effectively inventory and manage small water systems within their jurisdiction. It's designed to track information related to homes and facilities that are served, permits, site evaluations, types of systems, inspections, and even complaints. The program itself can help answer key questions such as, how many septic systems near drinking water sources have not been maintained? Are there any systems older than 35 years old sited close to water bodies? Which systems require an inspection within the year? And how many similar types of systems have malfunctioned in the past 3 years? The top screenshot is how the tool looks like when ran. The link listed on the slide will also feature a user guide as well as a video that'll guide you through how to use this program. The second screenshot shown is from another tool from EPA called the Funding Integration Tool for Source Water, or FITS. FITS is a browser-based tool which explains how users can integrate various federal funding sources to support activities that protect source water. The tool lists 14 funding sources and programs, 9 of which are from EPA and the rest which are from other federal agencies. Each funding source is provided with information like how it can be used, eligibility, funding limitations, funding structures, and much more. The tool also covers the steps or components of a source water protection program. And for each step, potential funding sources that may support it are listed, as well as recommendations for long-term planning and program collaboration. Examples of project utilizing each funding program is also included. Another set of resources I wanted to cover are emergency response preparedness resources for homeowners with septic systems. One of the steps included in many of the source water protection guide is, again, the implementation of a contingency plan or emergency plan to maintain reliable water supply to the community by better managing on-site systems during emergencies. After disaster like hurricanes, wildfires, or floods, septic systems can be damaged and fail to operate properly. Ensuring that these systems function properly is essential for protecting public health. But since there have been no standard safety protocols in place using septic systems after disaster, I wanted to highlight this resource, which was developed by, or the set of resources which was published by NEHA recently. NEHA is the National Environmental Health Association, and they published 5 guidance manuals and an accompanying checklist for local agencies to supply to their homeowners with septic systems. The guidance and checklists are intended for homeowners to better be prepared during, before, and after a disaster. The guide will help homeowners better understand their septic system type, location, and components which are usually critical to identify or know the location of to prepare for these extreme weather events or natural disasters. For example, on the flooding guide, homeowners are recommended to know all locations of septic system components, to turn off pumps at circuit boxes before flooding events. And during the flood, homeowners are recommended to eliminate all non-essential water use and to avoid using the system when a drain field gets flooded. And after a flood, if homeowners are recommended to consult with service providers, and to stay out of the area if they notice that sewage is starting to back up. So all these useful information that homeowners might not be aware of are listed on here. It would also be a shame if I didn't give a shout out to NARA, the National Onsite Wastewater Recycling Association, since we're talking about decentralized wastewater. NARA is the largest organization in the US which provides uh, education to its members within the decentralized wastewater industry. They were originally formed to educate the public and policymakers about the advantages and benefits of decentralized wastewater management, and they serve as an advocate at the federal, state, and local levels. NARA also has developed various resources focused on homeowners, promoting proper septic system care and maintenance. State-specific resources include a list of advanced on-site technologies approved by each state, funding programs for septic systems, training centers around the country for on-site professionals, and funding for technical or funding available for technical assistance programs. NARA also has wastewater resources aimed at industry professionals covering the design, installation, operation, and management of those on-site wastewater systems. They also host an annual conference, the On-Site Wastewater Mega Conference, which provides educational learning opportunities to on-site professionals, uh, which will also help them meet continuing education requirements for their certification or license. Their 2024 conference is scheduled for October 20th to 23rd in Spokane, Washington, for those that might be interested. For those that can't make it or want to look at previous conference presentation, NARA manages an archive of all their past conferences and provide links to presented papers and talks. One of these is the how-to guide for wastewater management of rural underserved communities in the Black Belt region of Alabama, which was presented during the 2022 conference. And it provides an overview of wastewater management challenges in the Black Belt region of Alabama, where many residents have straight pipe raw sewage discharge due to no sewer access, poverty, and unsuitable soil for conventional decentralized wastewater systems. The presentation also highlights the barriers to addressing these wastewater issues in small communities, wastewater collection strategies such as traditional municipal systems, on-site systems, and cluster systems, as well as management options, funding sources, and community education materials for outreach methods. For those that learn better from watching presentations or videos, there are various webinar and presentation recordings that also cover the topics of source water protection. The first one highlighted here is from the North Central Region Water Network, which is a 12 state collaboration designed to enhance connectivity across regional and state water projects. They have a 1-hour webinar recording on their organization's YouTube channel, which highlights some of the source water collaborative resources and toolkits available from the organization, as well as presentations from 2 of their member states on their approaches to source water protection. So the first speaker that's featured within the webinar is from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and they highlight their voluntary drinking water protection program, which aims to help small communities in Kansas to prevent nitrate contamination in their public water supply. For many rural communities in Kansas, they don't have the resources to be able to implement a nitrate treatment system. The presentation talks about how communities can get involved with the agency to receive assistance to manage their nitrate levels, and how public water systems can get involved to help communities reach nitrate reduction goals. Their program implements a free private well testing to assess nitrate levels and helps to form a local leadership team, which helps to involve community members during the development of a drinking water protection plan or source water protection plan. Another presenter is from Michigan State University, and they provide an overview of Michigan's approach to source water protection planning and highlights some of their barriers to source water protection planning, such as budgeting issues at the local level, lack of expertise, and the need for volunteer systems to renew their plan every 6 years. The presentation also touched on how partnerships can lead to successful source water protection planning, methods to encourage it, and incentives which can be utilized to help gain more public collaboration. The next video recording is from the 2023 Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, or TCEQ's Drinking Water Conference, Source Water Protection Track. This 45-minute video recording provides an overview of the state of Texas's source water protection program, while highlighting their efforts to reach out to public water systems to encourage developing a source water protection plan, source water protection partnerships with Texas, with the agency and Texas Rural Water Association to help water systems with new wells to update their source water protection plan, partnerships with Texas Forest Services to identify common relationships between forested watershed and water resources, and to help identify priority areas, and partnerships with Texas Parks and Wildlife Department to implement source water protection at a state park. Additional information such as most common potential sources of contamination within Texas, public awareness efforts, and best management practices for business and communities are also highlighted. And the final resource I wanted to cover today is the 1-hour webinar recording from the Environmental Finance Center Network, which highlights the efforts from Virginia Department of Public Health to understand the impacts of climate change on septic systems near coastal region of the state and how aging septic systems on the coast of Delaware are being managed in response to rising sea levels. So the first presentation from Virginia highlights the agency's efforts to map out their state's septic systems and to identify patterns of septic system failures and repairs that can help inform decision makers about how wastewater is managed in certain coastal areas. So this is the screenshot shown here is actually their agency's Virginia Wastewater Data Viewer tool. It's an excellent tool to help identify areas where more septic system failures are prevalent, and management actions that are alternatives to centralized sewer. Solutions such as raised, mound, and elevated systems, community systems, and water reuse systems are also highlighted to assess their option as a solution. The second presentation features the mayor of Slaughter Beach, Delaware, detailing the issues of aging septic systems and rising sea levels within their community. The presentation also provides an overview of the septic remediation programs or projects, and engineering septic elimination projects occurring in the state or the area to help communities get connected to centralized sewer to reduce the need of septic systems. Slaughter Beach also ended up taking this approach and installed a vacuum collection system, pump station, and 5 miles of pressure main to connect the community to the inland treatment facility. So these were the resources that I wanted to cover today. There are a lot more resources from various organizations and state source water protection programs that I wasn't able to cover here. But again, for those that are interested in learning more, I would definitely recommend reaching out to your state source water protection program to see what kind of opportunities or collaborative efforts are available within your state. Now that I've introduced those resources, I'll give you a quick tour of our website and guide you through how to find some of the resources we covered today. So again, this is our homepage, and you can navigate to our website or you can navigate through our website from our main menu bar, which is located at the top. If you're looking to find resources like fact sheets or guidebooks, you can hover your cursor over the resource library menu, which will then give you an additional drop-down menu. From there, you can select document search listed under the search for documents, which will then take you to the document library page, which looks kind of like this. So once you get to this search for the documents page, you'll see a search module with a dropdown and a keyword filter text box. If you click on the dropdown option, it'll ask you to select specific filters that you want to use to populate the resource library. The 4 filters are categories, which are a series of water and wastewater related categories, which I showed earlier on the pie chart. You can also search using type, which represents the type of resources like fact sheets, manuals, presentations, videos. The state filter will be used to search for state-specific resources, such as resources developed by maybe your specific state primary agencies or state-specific organizations, or maybe even case studies of projects occurring in that certain state. And the final filter is host, which would be the organization that developed the resource and is hosting it. So let's say you're trying to find more documents geared towards source water protection. Well, you can click on a category, which will then produce a list of the water and wastewater related categories as shown here. If you scroll through, you'll see that source water and source water protection is one of those categories, and they're all listed alphabetically, so you might have to scroll to the very bottom, but it will be there. Now, if you select that and press retrieve documents, it will start populating source water related resources under the search module. And as shown here, if the research results have been populated, and it also gives you the number of total records of documents we have related to that category. In this case, we have over close to 2,300 resources, which is way too much to sort through. Um, since it also indicates that it's showing pages 1 through 235. I will note that each search results or each page, I guess, will only show 10 results, and you'll have to switch between different pages to go to the next resource. But in this case, this is again way too much to go through. So if this were the case, you can refine your search even more by either adding another filter. Um, if you look at the search module, you'll see that there's a second drop-down menu which you can select, which acts as an additional filter. So for this example, let's say we're looking for US EPA's various source water protection resources. You can now select host in the second filter option, which will then give you the list of organizations which have emergency response, or not, which have source water protection related resources. You might notice that when you use the second filter option, the drop-down option may be significantly less than using that filter by itself, since the search module uses a nested filter function. The second and third filters will take into account of the previous filter to increase efficiency or to provide more efficient search results or search functionality. Now that we selected USEPA as the host, and if we click on retrieve documents, now we've refined our search down to 177 documents. Again, this might be a little bit more manageable, but honestly, 177 is still a lot to go through. We can refine the search even more by either adding a third filter of either resource type or state. So if you know the type of resource you're looking for, such as maybe you're looking for a video, fact sheet, a manual, you can select that type filter to refine your search more. Or if you're looking for, again, a state-specific resource, like case study conducted in certain states, you can choose a state filter. If there are certain criteria not shown on here, you can search using the keyword filter as well. For this example, let's say we're looking for video resources like webinar recordings. We can then add a third drop-down filter, select video as the type, and it will update our search to only show 26 results, which is much more manageable to go through. And now that we know that these are all EPA-related videos, that is something that might be beneficial for you since it's coming from US EPA. And once you're interested in a certain resource, you can look through the summary of it, select the title of it, and it'll open the actual resource. One of the categories that is also provided is decentralized wastewater systems. Currently, there is no way to search using two categories. So you can't search using both the source water and the decentralized wastewater category. So in this situation, it's best recommended to search selecting one as a category and entering the other category as a keyword in the keyword filter box. So for this example, I chose decentralized wastewater systems as a category and chose source water as the keyword filter, and that gave me 17 search results of resources that's relevant for that's source water protection resources that also includes decentralized wastewater systems. So this should give you enough flexibilities for users to refine their search and to find specific resources that might be looking for. I also mentioned our nationwide calendar earlier, where we display all the water and wastewater related events that we've collected from various organizations. Again, we mainly focus on collecting information events that offer CEUs, and this tool is meant to help operators have an easier time finding training opportunities compared to having to, again, juggle through various training providers' websites. You can access the calendar tool by clicking on the events calendar on the menu bar at the top, which will bring you to a new page with an empty calendar and a search filter similar to the document search tool. You can populate the calendar by selecting appropriate filters. We again have category, which are the wastewater and wastewater related topics, type, which are the event types, such as trainings, webinars, conferences, state, which is the state the event takes place in, or the state where the training is approved in, approved for credits, and sponsor, which is the organization sponsoring the event. In general, we find that most operators we hear from will use just the state filter to see what kind of opportunities are within their state. But you can refine your search significantly by utilizing all of these separate filters. For this demo, since many federal and state agencies seem to be offering webinars on source water protection, let's select webinar as event type and just see how many results we get. Once you select webinar live online as the training type, it'll automatically populate the calendar. And as you can tell, just from this screenshot, there are a lot of webinars opportunities scheduled in June of 2024. Normally, it'll lists the full event name, but since there's so many events listed per day, the names of the event has been shrunk just to show the acronym. But for certain days where there's not many events going on, you can actually see the full title of the event name. In cases like this, we would definitely recommend using an additional filter just to narrow your search more. So for this example, let's say we want to search for webinar opportunities from Environmental Finance Center Network. We can now select sponsor as a second drop-down filter and search through the list of organizations to find EFCN. Once you select that filter, you'll notice that the events shown on the calendar has reduced drastically, and we only see a couple events listed. One of them, which is a webinar titled PFAS Today, Tomorrow, and Forever. MCLs are here, now what? Just looking at that doesn't really tell us much information, but if you click on event name, it'll open up a new window which will include more information. So let's say we click on this event. Now you'll see this new window pop up, which has a lot more information. We try to make sure to display all the relevant information like the date the event's taking place, location, if it's an in-person event, or time zone for webinars, course details, contact information, cost, and the number of CUs that are offered if there are any. You will also see a link to the organization webpage where you can actually go and register for the event. So again, we're not taking any credit. We're just provide a means to search for these events and help operators find these events or training opportunities or resources. Similar to the document search, we can search using the keyword filter as well. So for this example, let's say you want to search for events covering source water assessments. We can remove the original filters by clicking on clear filters, and which is located under the keyword box. Then we can enter source water assessment and press go. Now we can see much less events as we have used a lot more. We've used a keyword that refines the search even more, which will usually reduce the results compared to just using a specific category. And if anyone needs help finding certain events or documents, they can always reach out to us as well, and we usually try to help find specific events and resources for them. For example, a while back, we had several calls about resources that are available to help Illinois operators prepare for the Class A surface water treatment certification exam. Since there are barely any resources available from Illinois-based organization, our staff went around, looked for any public available certification prep material from other states that share similar certification requirements for surface water treatment and share those resources to our callers. So again, if you have any questions, always reach out to us and we'll be there to help you. So these are the two tools that are the most popular on our website. I just also wanted to briefly go over some of the other resources that are offered on our site. First is our blog post, where we highlight recent news or where we focus on a single topic and showcase resources related to that topic, which also can be found through our library tool. If you look on the side, or you can get to this page by clicking, hovering over resource library and selecting browse the blog. And if you look on the right side of this page, you'll see kind of terms that look like category terms or topics. One of the topics included is source water protection. So if you just want to look at blog posts relevant to source water protection, you can click on it and it will narrow your blog post results down to just those results. Another category you do have is decentralized wastewater system as well, which can also help you narrow your blog post search down. Shown here is an example of a blog post which highlights the importance of keeping contaminants out of a septic system to avoid source water contaminants, such as, again, hazardous chemicals from entering the environment or sewage from entering the environment. The blog post also tries to reference public available resources as much as we can, and we try to feature ones that are, again, showcased on our resource library as well. We also have 3 newsletters that we send out monthly or biweekly electronically through this program. The first is our most popular standardwateroperator.org biweekly newsletter, which highlights recent news, upcoming free events, as well as some of the resources found in our library. We also have the Innovations for Small Systems newsletter, which is our monthly newsletter where we highlight recent news on innovations in water and wastewater management with a focus on small systems, as well as recent publications such as research papers or journals. And finally, our third newsletter, which is geared more towards operators of tribal communities. All 3 of these newsletters cover drinking water, municipal water, and even on-site wastewater topics. You can get to our newsletter page through the top menu bar to see top menu bar, which is just one is there just for newsletter. And if you click on it, it'll there will be a place where you can sign up for a newsletter as well as look at our previous newsletter archives. I will note that we are currently going through the process of transitioning our newsletter service provider, so we'll have our more recent newsletter archives, hopefully as in the next month or so, updated on here. Finally, I also wanted to announce that we have just launched a new website similar to wateropera.org called decentralizedwastewater.org. This website shares similar goals as wateropera.org to be a clearinghouse of public available resources, but for on-site professionals. Much of the events and resources searchable on this site is geared towards septic system installers, designers, soil scientists, and other professionals involved with decentralized wastewater management. With so much federal efforts going into providing technical assistance to on-site wastewater professionals, we saw the need to develop this new site to help on-site professionals be able to search for resources and training events easier. We'll also have a monthly newsletter and blog posts featured on this website as well, focusing on decentralized topics and news. So if you're interested about learning more, please go have a chance to look through our website, both of these websites, especially this new one, and please make sure to have us bookmarked if you find our tools useful. That concludes my presentation today. If you get a chance to use our websites and run into any questions, please feel free to contact me or my supervisor, Steve Wilson. Our emails and phone numbers are shown here. Or if you scroll down to the bottom of either websites, you can find our contact information on there as well. If you'd like a copy of this presentation so you can easily access the resource mentioned today, I'll be more than happy to send you a copy if you send me an email. Yeah, thank you very much for your time and allowing me to speak to you all. At this point, I will move over to answering some of the questions we may have gotten through our GoToWebinar platform. Okay, so currently I am seeing 2 questions. For the others, feel free to enter questions now as well, again, into the question box. The first question I have is, I missed it, what is the percentage of Americans that use decentralized systems? This is a report from EPA. I'm not sure how up to date it is, but according to EPA estimates, 1 in 5 households currently use decentralized wastewater systems. And we're actually going through a project mapping out some of the decentralized wastewater systems from around the country. And I will tell you that there are very few state agencies that have a good public record of their on-site systems. And a lot of times, many of them are missing. I showed earlier the Virginia Department of Health wastewater viewer tool. They actually sent us their data set for their on-site systems as well, which I believe only covers around 60% of their state. But there are a lot more efforts going on by states to want to map out these systems. A lot of times state agencies lack the funding to be able to do so, but definitely, if you're interested to learn more about how many decentralized wastewater systems might be in your state, I would recommend reaching out to your state's on-site wastewater management program, or if they have one, or septic system permitting program, just to get more information about how many systems that might exist within your state. The next question is, are the source water protection planning assessment changes meant for regulators or water users? The document itself is meant more for water users. So it's meant for systems to, again, be able to update those changes that might be required. It still follows the same core elements, I believe, of the EPA's 7 or 6 core elements, but again, it's more intended to be used hands-on by water systems to implement their plan. I'm sure regulators can benefit from reading the information as well, as there might be updated information that they might be able to include in their state's source water protection plan. I also received a comment, our 3 townships over 100 square miles, 100% use septic tanks. It is locally dependent. Yeah, we've noticed that a lot of these on-site wastewater systems are managed at the local level. That's why a lot of the states lack the data that they need to map out their state's on-site systems. There's a disconnect between local health districts and the state agency. Obviously, for areas like the Puget Sound area, those county health departments are probably more affluent compared to the rest of their states, so they might have more resources to allocate to mapping out or doing the ground truth to locate those septic systems. But Yeah, a lot of the states are struggling to be able to map that out. We noticed that Delaware, Virginia, and Florida are the few states that actually have a very comprehensive map, public map of their on-site wastewater systems. Florida Department of Health has over 2 million data points that you can download and enter into a GIS database to see which tax parcels are likely are sewered, um, or likely has a septic system or known to have a septic system, so that if you're trying to do a source water assessment in Florida, you can get all the information from Florida Department of Health. But again, yeah, those they have so much data points concentrated in areas throughout the state. It makes it very hard to do an actual assessment because there are so many data points around the state. So again, if you're looking to find more information, definitely contact your state um, septic system permitting agency and see if they can help you out with getting the necessary data. Or again, you might even have to go to the local county health department level because they might have data that the state might not have. But again, be aware that some of these local health departments might only have paper records. They might not have digitized any of their data. So the level of data quality can also vary significantly depending on the different local county health departments. So it looks like that's all the questions we have for now. Again, if you come up with any other questions, feel free to email me and I'll be more than happy to try to answer any of the questions you might have. Yeah, and with that, I'll conclude this webinar. Thanks for sitting in again, and yeah, hope everyone has a nice rest of the day. Thank you all.